Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello, and welcome to a Friday edition of the program. It is the 5th of December, and we have a guest with us today, and I'm very excited about her and talking to her. Just want to say one thing before we get that conversation started. As I was watching last night on CNN, the rather spontaneous marches occurring in New York City, seemingly well organized and spontaneous, which begs the question could they be both? But I was very moved by seeing thousands and thousands of people in the streets peacefully and demographically diverse, white, black, brown, old, young, a lot of young, though. And that's what gave me hope. I thought maybe I'm seeing the beginning of what I've been wanting so long now, wondering when it would happen. How do you get Americans into the streets? People who don't always do it. How do you get them there? So I was really pleased to see it, and to note the police restraint that accompanied the marchers. I'm sure New York police were under extraordinary pressure to be very, very accommodating to the protesters. So, those of you who say you can't stand talking about that subject anymore, I will cease and desist today, because we move on to another subject that is, to me, equally fraught with a sense of, sometimes, of maddening hopelessness. This is one that just tangles my head up all the time. I have said this more than once. How can we tell women that they have the right to terminate a pregnancy in this country if they have no access to the doctor who can terminate that pregnancy? Do you have a right if you have no access to that right? And I would argue, I think a reasonable person would say, well, no, you really don't. And it's befuddled me why that isn't an argument that can be made to the Supreme Court or somebody saying, hey, all of these barriers that state legislatures are putting up so that women cannot access health care as well as abortion services. How can that be legal if women have the right? My guest today probably has a heck of a lot more questions than I have, but unlike me, she's somebody who doesn't wait around for somebody else to answer them. She just gets down to business. My guest is Lindsay Scheibel. She's from Austin, Texas. She is currently a law student. She is the mother of one, expecting number two, and she's all of 20 years old. And she is the founder of a fund that helps low-income women actually access what is supposedly their right. Access abortion. Lindsay, are you there?
I sure am.
First of all, I want to tell you, when I read this article about you, I was just blown away at the power of one determined person. How many women have you been able to help?
We have planned the trip for over 115 people. So not all of them actually go, but most of them do, and they generally go to lots of places, every major city in Texas, California, Colorado, and also New Mexico.
Okay, so wait, you're operating in the huge state of Texas, which has passed every egregious law to barricade and pull down any of these Planned Parenthood clinics, any clinics that would have abortion services. So in a state, let's say you get pregnant in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you get an abortion in Dallas? It's a major city. Surely they've got providers there.
Well, the first reason is because Texas now has a 22-week ban. So if you are past 22 weeks, you cannot be in Texas for your abortion.
Okay.
The closest place to go is New Mexico, but even that is, I think, a 10-hour drive away from Dallas. The other problem is that even if you're not at 22 weeks, let's say you're at 16 or 17 weeks, well, the clinics in Dallas might be so booked up that you can't even get an appointment until you're past.
Why are we, I'm hearing 16, 17, 18 weeks. I'm wondering why do these women wait that long?
The major reason is money, because as you know probably, there is such thing as the Hyde Amendment, which is tacked onto every federal budget that says no federal funds can go toward abortions. So that means Medicaid, meaning that the poorest women in Texas are not able to use their insurance to cover their abortion. So if you find out that you're pregnant when you're 8 weeks, which not everyone does, many people don't find out they're pregnant until they're maybe 12 or 13 or later. But even if you find out early, you call the clinic and they tell you, oh, well, your abortion is going to cost $300. And so assuming you don't have $300 on hand, you have to save it up. And by the time you save up those $300, maybe you're 11 weeks and now your procedure costs $5. So this cycle of trying to raise money in time for your procedure to still be that same price is really hard on poor people in Texas.
And it would seem to me that the earlier an abortion can happen. What am I hearing?
Well, the earlier...
The safer for the woman, the earlier an abortion can happen. And so if I'm getting some very strange feedback.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's not you. If I sound like I'm talking and then stopping and talking, there was some strange sound. I'm okay now. And Lindsay, you can still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but when these legislatures make these, what I think of as just purely harassing kinds of laws to keep women from being able to access abortion, and they actually say that their concern is for the health of the woman. How can their concern be for the health of the woman when these barriers that women have to jump over and the hoops they have to jump through mean that her abortion often occurs much later into term than it had to?
Yes, I don't think that these laws were intended to protect health. I think that they were intended to make abortions harder to get, and
yes,
they have succeeded in that goal.
Very much. So in the state of Texas, how great has the success of the anti-abortion legislature and governor there been? Do you have any numbers, like how many clinics you had 2 years ago as opposed to how many you have today?
Sure. So before the most recent bill, House Bill 2, passed last summer, we had 36 clinics operating. And then once House Bill 2 has passed, all the way to today, we have about 17 or 18, but the problem is that House Bill 2 is not done. It still has one last provision that will knock us down to 8 clinics.
Wow.
And I'm expecting that to happen in February.
You're kidding. Okay, so from 8 clinics in this huge, huge state.
Yes, and all of them are concentrated in Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Houston, which makes up approximately a quarter of the state's area if you look at a map.
So the women most impacted are women who are not living in urban centers, right? And poor women.
Yes.
And so your foundation helps these women with the financial resources so that they can, even if they have to leave the state to get an abortion or travel 400, 500, 600 miles, can they get an abortion the day of, their first visit, or are there laws that say, there's waiting periods, which then would require them to stay overnight in places, in strange cities?
There are waiting periods. So if you live within 100 miles of the clinic, then you have to wait 24 hours before your initial consultation and your abortion to give you time to change your mind. But if you live outside of that 100-mile radius, the waiting period is shortened to 2 hours. The problem is that 100 miles is, a 2-hour drive. So even if you live pretty far away from the clinic, you would still have to stay over an extra night.
And you'd also, the assumption is made that you have access to a car.
Yes. I will tell you that our most difficult cases are people who don't have cars.
Right.
Because it's really hard to get around in Texas without one. And so normally what we do is we will get someone either a Greyhound bus ticket or a shuttle to the nearest airport. But if you live in such a rural area that you don't have a Greyhound stop or a shuttle route, then what we have to do is pay for a taxi to drive you a long distance.
My God. Who's funding your foundation?
Hundreds of people across the country. I mean, we have received almost complete support from random individuals who just hear about us and want to support our cause. We have received almost no grant funding since we started.
Well, I am one individual who would want to support this cause. So how do we do that?
Well, the easiest way would be to go to fundtexaschoice.org/donate, and then there's a little link that you can click on. But also on that page, there's an address if you're more interested in sending a check.
Okay, fundtexaschoice.org. And did you say something after the org that I didn't hear?
/donate.
Oh, slash. Oh, yeah, /donate. Okay. fundtexaschoice.org/donate. And so to help one woman who supposedly is an American citizen, has access to abortion services, it can cost somehow how many days and how much money to access that supposedly legitimate medical procedure. I mean, are we talking for some women, is this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars?
Well, if all you need is a one-way bus ticket or maybe one night in a hotel, let's say the lower range might be $50 to $75 for someone's trip. But the upper range is for people who need to fly out of state because they're later term and so their procedures take several days. They might be on a one-week trip that costs $2,000.
$2,000.
Yes, because of the week in the hotel and the round-trip plane ticket. Because I also only ever buy refundable plane tickets, since sometimes people change their minds.
Well, wait. So you buy refundable tickets, which means you're buying pricier tickets.
Yes, because the alternative would be to buy non-refundable tickets, and then someone calls me and tell me they never go.
So how often does that happen, that someone gets to this point of, extremists and then is given a lifeline and then says, on second thought, no thank you? I mean, why would that be?
Well, it happens probably 25% of the time, and that's after we've bought the plane ticket, after we've made the hotel reservations. It can happen for lots of reasons. The most common reason is childcare. So even if I bought you a plane ticket, and even if you're set to go the next day, if all of a sudden, let's say, the person who was going to watch your kid finds out why you're leaving the state, then they might punish you by saying, you know what, I'm not going to support you to do that. And then you have nowhere to put your kid. And you can't bring your kid with you because
they don't have a ticket. Yeah.
Exactly. So childcare is the most common reason. The other reasons might be related to your work. So maybe you got time off, and then all of a sudden your employer calls you and says, you know what, if you go, you're fired. So there are lots of reasons why someone might change at the last minute, but most of the time we don't even hear from people who don't go, which makes it a little risky.
Well, so these women end up carrying to term babies they felt they could not support or did not want. So they, oh God.
It happens all the time in Texas because I get people who call us earlier in the procedure. They're calling us and asking us, well, where is the closest place that I can go? And I tell them New Mexico, and they say, well, screw that, and they don't go.
Uh-huh. I bet some of these women have never gotten on an airplane.
No, many of them have not.
Well, the whole thing would be it's terrifying enough to be terminating your pregnancy, but to have to get on an airplane by yourself, go to a strange city, and all this as if you're doing something that's like, nefarious or something. What?
Yes.
You're in law school. Will you please explain to me how a right can be a right if it is unavailable? How is that possible?
Because there is no constitutional protection for poor people. I mean, that's really it. There's no reason why the Constitution would care, especially for people who can't afford to get health care.
So there's nothing in our jurisprudence about somebody's. You mean if you're poor, you just, sorry, bud, you don't have access to the same rights as others do?
Well, the Casey standard of an undue burden. So, for example, if a state wants to impose an abortion restriction, it cannot impose an undue burden on the people trying to get abortions. But I think the courts have ruled that poverty in itself was not caused by the state. You were poor to start out with, so it's not their fault.
If you're poor, it's your own damn fault. Now, the thing is that these very clinics that the Republicans and some Democrats, I must say, that the Republicans are trying to shut down and harass into non-existence, are also often the only source for health care that these women have available to them. And when I say health care, I mean access to contraception.
Right.
So if there's now no clinic where a woman who used to be able to get her contraception, thus attempting responsibly to not get pregnant, and now that clinic shut, and she can't get access to the contraception or access to a cancer screening, a mammogram, a cervical cancer test. I don't understand. Lindsay.
We had a client called us at the beginning of our hotline. So last year, she called us and told us that she had had an appointment at her nearest Planned Parenthood in Midland for an IUD, and the clinic closed before her appointment happened, and then she got pregnant and needed to get an abortion, and that clinic had been closed. I mean, this happens in Texas, I promise, because the contraceptions available at abortion clinics are so much cheaper than you would get if you went to a regular doctor's office. Exactly.
And most of the women who take advantage of the Planned Parenthood clinics are on Medicaid or on some measure of assistance.
Or have none.
And so, right. And so these Republican legislatures and governors are essentially closing down access to health care for poor women.
Yes, because if you had enough money, you would always be able to fly to New York. But that's really daunting for someone who can't even afford the procedure in the first place.
You know, when I was your age, abortion was still illegal in this country, and I watched as it became legal. But because when I was your age, it was still illegal, and I was in college, I was party to two classmates of mine traveling into some very frightening experiences to terminate pregnancies. One which went okay, the other which was really very, very scary. It seems to me we're almost, if not already, sort of right back there.
We at Fun Texas Choice are definitely part of that legacy. We are holding that history every time we have someone travel in order to get the health care that they need, and that's really, really scary.
Yeah. How do you keep your anger under control?
Well, I have that feeling in a lot of situations, not just abortion, but also racism and also sexism and everything. And it's just, all I can do is the one tiny step that I'm doing, which is to make sure one individual person can get what they need. Even if what I'm doing is not changing the system, even if the laws are still the same, at least I can say to one person that I help them circumvent it.
You've got a lot on your plate. If you're a pregnant mother of one, and you're in law school, and you're doing this foundation, you got a lot of energy, huh?
Well, less now that I'm pregnant, that's for sure. But I have a really, really supportive husband, and he has. He's watching the baby right now, so she doesn't cry on this interview.
Well, I mean, I just have such respect for you. While you're there in Texas, I know there are states, I'm thinking Mississippi, which has only one clinic left in that entire state. And I believe there are some states like North Dakota or South Dakota, Wyoming, that don't have any. And think of how huge those states are. So
Texas does not have it worse, that's for sure. And as crazy as it sounds, with all of the regulations that we have, we still have it better off than other places. And that's really frightening. I mean, the disparity in healthcare in this country is such that we can be right next door to New Mexico, which has no abortion restrictions, and then, here's Texas. So I've been getting really disillusioned with the idea that each state is allowed to do this. It's almost like we're all living in separate countries.
Right. Well, you sort of wonder if like-minded people won't eventually end up in certain states and will, I don't know, be a new kind of civil war, I suppose. It's beyond me how anyone would want to live in these red states. It's beyond me. And it's also, yeah.
I'll tell you that I do love living in Texas. I know it sounds crazy, but it's my home, and a lot of progressive people have left Texas. They've gone to places where they're more free, and I can understand that, but at the same time, I can't have all the cool people leaving me. We need to change something here.
You need to stay and fight, don't you? Yeah, right. And thank you for doing that. But you're in Austin, which is the more progressive real estate in Texas.
Yes, that was my compromise.
I'll stay in Texas, but only in Austin. I mean, I really don't even like to fly into the state. I don't want to, spend any money there. I don't want to, I feel that way about these states.
I know. It's terrible, but the sad part is that I think that the legislature and the power in Texas is a lot more conservative than actual Texans are, and if it wasn't for political maneuvering and voter ID laws and gerrymandering, then we would have a state that is tolerable, and I wait for the day when Texas is ready to reclaim what's ours.
Well, some people say there's hope in the fact that the demographics of Texas are changing, but I don't know. I don't know how that impacts the abortion issue, since I can't imagine there's a great deal of support for abortion in the Hispanic community. Is that true?
Well, the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health has been conducting research, and they're finding that Latinas support abortion just like other people.
Really?
That family autonomy is really important, and the main problem that I see is where the Democratic Party is not very diverse, or at least sometimes has exclusionary rhetoric, or sometimes feels racist, especially in places where they're not quite used to dealing with people of color. And so if the Democratic Party could get on board that way, then that would help. But I still believe that Hispanic people, including myself, are definitely ready for a better Texas that doesn't restrict people's choices.
What kind of feedback have you gotten since this story of you showed up in the New York Times a week ago?
Lots and lots and lots of positive feedback from across the country in states that I never would have imagined would care about Texas. I mean, we've gotten letters and emails and donations from people from almost every state, and that's amazing to me, because as much as I know that this is a national problem, it might just seem like, oh, well, that's Texas. But it is something bigger, and I'm really proud of that.
Are you aware of others in other states doing what you're doing, or have you come upon something unique that maybe should be replicated in other states? Is there a way of getting what you're doing out to Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana?
Yeah, so there are organizations in other states that are networks that help people access abortion, but most of them are mostly volunteer-based. So, for example, someone might donate their time to drive someone to the clinic, as opposed to the organization buying a ticket for them, I considered the volunteer model whenever we were starting, but it seemed really difficult to do in 90 days, which is the amount of time I had before clinics would start to close. And in our kind of emergency mode, we didn't have much time. So raising money to buy the tickets was a lot faster, but also it's really hard to find a volunteer to drive the 6 hours needed between Midland and Austin. So there's that. But other people in other states have also contacted me to get my feedback on how they can start this in their state. So I think I'm talking to someone from Ohio tomorrow, and
Great.
I don't know, just helping other places do exactly the same thing as we're doing here.
Fantastic. I mean, that is just, I'm so thrilled to hear that. When will you finish your law school degree?
Well, I'm in my first semester, so I will graduate in May 2017.
May 2017. You blew through college in 2 years.
I did. I wish I could do law school faster than 3, but I don't think they'll let me.
No, although there are a lot of people arguing the 3 years is ridiculous for law school, and the 2 years would do just as well. But
predictably, I agree with that.
So what do you think you'll do? Law school changes a lot. I mean, I know people go into law school with a lot of starry-eyed ideas of how they're going to change the world, and they come out cynical and beaten down. Mm-hmm. What do you think you're going to come out, and what are you going to do?
Well, from the beginning, I've always wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer. So that's my aspiration. And luckily, I am not aspiring to do something that requires a 4.0 grade average or a lot of 60-hour work weeks. I mean, I'm not interested in a firm job, so that clears out a lot of stress for me. But I have this starry-eyed idea of how I can help people, but at least I know that as a lawyer, I can help those individuals who come in and whose cases I take, even if the world still sucks afterwards.
So could you see yourself working for legal aid, or would you want to really just hang up a shingle and take on specific criminal cases?
Well, I'd love to be a public defender, but there's not that many public defender jobs in Texas because counties don't often shell out the money for that. But if that's not possible, then sure, I'll start my own practice.
Wow. Well, if I ever get in trouble, I'll give you a call.
Well, I don't know anything about Pennsylvania law, so.
Well, that's true. That's true. But
if you get in trouble in Texas, though, you know who to call.
I'm not going to get in trouble in Texas because I ain't going to go anywhere near the damn place.
You should move here. We need you.
Oh, jeez, God. I'm for Texas, which thinks it's a nation, just seceding. I'd like to see it just go away, frankly.
I know, but we do really need federal protection. Really do. As terrible as that sounds, the federal government hasn't been that great, but it would be better than seceding.
Yeah. I mean, given a choice between having Barack Obama or Rick Perry, I guess. Yeah. Oh dear Lord. Well, Lindsay, you're amazing. I know you came from your own biography is of a rough beginning, and
yeah, kind of
and it didn't. Man, you must be something. You really must have one tough core in you, and you must be smart as blazes, and you have a good heart because to have seen this need to jump in and just flat out do it, even though a lot of other people would say, I got a baby, I'm pregnant, I'm in school, how am I supposed to? You did it! It's unbelievable.
Well, I think that my youth really helps me out because I am much more likely to just do something crazy, a.k.a. start a foundation, and not really worry about the consequences.
Right.
If I had thought about it before I started, I probably wouldn't have done it. It's really tiring, and the baby and everything. But I also have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, so when HB2 was passed, Texas was in the news all the time. And I think that's the moment to start making change when people are paying attention.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you're something. I'm going to keep my eye on you. For those who, I don't know, she's 20 years old. 20 years old. At 20, I didn't even know how to tie my shoes.
Well, actually, I turned 21 on Saturday.
Oh! Well, that doesn't sound as good anymore then. 21.
I know.
That's an adult. Boo.
I'm losing all of my already.
Yeah, you are. Well, tough. 21. Man, well, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
You're not concerned, are you, for your own safety, given the nuts that are out there in Texas and stuff?
Well, we, at Fun Texas Choice, we don't have a physical office, so that helps. People don't have a particular place to go, but I have received some pretty awful voicemails and emails, and the things that people say on the internet about me is pretty awful, so I wouldn't put it past someone to try something, but I think that they would be limited to one of our public events, which honestly, if we got protesters at one of our events, it would be kind of good for us.
Yeah, exactly.
They would only be helping us out, you know?
I know. I was talking about that yesterday. Why don't protesters often know that you're simply helping the very people you're protesting by upping their profile and letting more people know they're there? So,
and in the case of clinics, I don't think that's good because individual clients have to walk past all of that crap. But for us, we don't care because none of our clients ever meet us face to face. So really, they would just be showing up to a bunch of feminists, and that would be kind of fun.
Well, Lindsay Scheibel, I thank you. As I said, I'll be a follower of yours and a contributor of yours. Again,
thank you so much.
Yes, again, it is Fund Texas Choice, all one word, .org/donate. Do it. Do it. I can't think of a better thing to give some money to than this extraordinary effort being made by this young, indomitable woman. Thank you a million. Appreciate it. Maybe we'll talk again sometime. Bye-bye.
So.
Okay, bye. Bye. Wow. Jeez. To be that young and to... It's sort of cute that she said it was her youth that probably made her not, just she impetuously decided, well, I guess I'll start a foundation and didn't even think about it, just did it. And she's helped well over 100 women. And the more money we give her, the more she can help others. This is, it's just amazing. Amazing how we have to fight back. Same fights getting fought all over again. And a lot of old people, a lot of old women. Like I go to my Planned Parenthood board meetings, and a lot of old women there. And seeing this new generation coming up with their energy and their activism is good for my heart, because I was starting to worry that young people weren't stepping up. But that's not the case. I saw that last night in New York in those protests. I saw it here in Pittsburgh in the protest. I saw it, seeing it increasingly, that young people are waking up and they are saying, wait a minute. This is not the America that I pledge allegiance to. This is not the America from my civics class, and this is not the America that I love. This is an America that needs to be fixed. And I love that another group of young people it's the young always that point the way. Always. And if we're seeing an energy going through youth youth communities over this police brutality. Great. Get them out there, because this is something that, God, I really thought last night maybe you'll look back and say, remember that night, I think it was in December of 14, and just out of the blue, it wasn't really expected, there were thousands of people in the streets of New York, and it was cold as hell. And they marched, and they closed things down. And they were respectful. And the cops handled themselves well. Made my heart good. Maybe, I thought, maybe the beginning of what I've been waiting for an awfully long time, which is Americans finally saying, all right, that's it. That's enough. I'm getting up and I'm going into the street. I don't know if you saw the additional video that came out yesterday about Eric Garner's death. Did you see additional video? I got to tell you something. I think the additional video fed those thousands that came out, because they started showing it in, I don't know, maybe late afternoon. And it so clearly shows that not only should he have not died that day, but that the police and even the paramedics who showed up after, frankly, didn't seem to give a damn about whether he was alive or dead. When you see the rest of the video after he's down, and he does not appear to be breathing, and you see all these cops trained in CPR standing around, nobody even thinking of helping him. When you see the paramedics show up, and there's a nonchalance, it'd be like in a nightmare where you're moving in slow motion, even as you need immediate help. If you want to see why people say black life in this country is totally devalued, watch the rest of the tape. That's a black man lying there. He's dying. He's not dead yet. He dies in the ambulance. He's dying. And there's a whole bunch of authorities that are trained to give him help who are doing nothing. It's very difficult to watch. But I rail about cell phones so much, but boy, whoever shot those videos did us all a great service. Whoever shot those videos. Because usually it's true, we don't see with our own eyes what's happened. And there are different videos of what happened that night, and not a one of them exonerates these police. Not a one exonerates them. For the first time, I heard what he was saying to the police. He was just saying, hey, man, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I mean, he's essentially saying, look, this is how I make my living. I sell these Lucy's. Come on, man, leave me alone. He's just trying to make a living. And there's 6 police officers there because some poor black guy's trying to make a living selling individual cigarettes. That's nuts. Right there. That's nuts. Right there. As priorities go, right? And then that he should have to be brought down. And then killed. Oh, no reason to look any further into that, says the grand jury. You've got to be kidding. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's get a break in here, if you don't mind, and see if another subject comes up.
Need to get some rest. This is the worst headache ever.
Right arm's all tingly all of a sudden. Must have slept on it last night.
I keep losing my balance. These old bones need some exercise.
Granddaddy, what you just said doesn't even make sense. It sounds like gibberish.
Signs like these could be more than what they seem. They could be a sign of stroke.
Sudden weakness or numbness of the face, arm, or leg.
Sudden trouble with vision in one or both eyes.
Sudden trouble walking or difficulty with balance.
Or a sudden intense headache that comes out of nowhere.
If you or someone you know has any of these symptoms, don't wait. Call 911 immediately. You could make a difference in someone's life, someone you love, maybe even your own.
Time lost is brain lost.
Find out more at powertoendstroke.org. Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Download the popular CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh for the holidays. It's the free and fun app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Trans-Siberian Orchestra and dinner to Sonoma. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
BurghBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Burgh. Check out the newly optimized site for quicker access to deals. Log on today for discounted gift certificates to Ibiza, P.F. Chang's, and Wildwood Highlands. Pittsburgh's best bargains, BurghBargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com.
All righty.
Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
All right. Thank you. Getting lots of nice feedback about the interview with Lindsay Scheibel. And there was a piece, if you want to read the piece, it was in the New York Times, November 28th. It was last Friday. And it was titled, Activists Help Pay for Patients' Travel to Shrinking Number of Abortion Clinics. And it's just her, it was all her doing. She thought, geez, these women need help, and she just sits down and, unbelievable. Thanks for letting us hear her. It made my day. And also Roger said, great, terrible topic today. Yeah, a great topic, a terrible topic that's not showing many signs of getting better anytime soon. So, she, by the way, has overcome, I mean, I alluded to it, didn't want to get into it. She was given up by her mother when she was 7 years old. to some friends of her mother's. And Lindsay has no idea who her biological father was. In high school, she spent quite a bit of her senior year in a drug rehab center and still managed to graduate as valedictorian. So she's on drugs, she's in rehab, she's in detox, and she still outperforms every other student, right? And she blows through high school in 2 years.
College. Blows through college in 2 years.
Oh, thank you. Then she goes on to the University of Texas and blows through college in 2 years. Yeah, not high school. And she's now at the University of Texas Law School. Her dean at the high school said this of her: Lindsay is one of the most brilliant kids I've ever taught. We'd always say Lindsay could go in one of two directions. She could do something amazing and be fantastic, or really go off the rails. So she was one of these kids with so much to offer. And she did not go off the rails. And all that brilliance is already making itself well known. I do hope you guys will help fund her. I'm sure every little bit helps. You know, it goes for things like paying gas, gas costs, or buying a hotel room for a night, or a Greyhound bus ticket, or a plane ticket, whatever. So that's what the money is used for, and not much else. And again, the place to go would be fundtexaschoice.org/donate. I happened to see a little bit of that live Peter Pan thing they put on last night. Was that as bad as I thought it was? Did you see any of it? Oh my God. Who could watch something like that? It was mortifying. It was mortifying. First of all, who wants to see a musical like that on your TV staged as a stage play? I don't get it. I really don't get it live. Is there some, I mean, are people calling for that as entertainment? I mean, there was a time when I was very young, so we're talking 60 years ago, when TV was in its infancy, and watching Mary Martin on little black and white TV play Peter Pan in that production was magical. But in the day and age we live in now, it ain't magical anymore to see. I just thought it was awful. I couldn't watch much because I thought it was so cringe-ifying. But, and somebody pointed out, what's with the bit? What's with, okay, Peter Pan is supposed to be a boy who won't grow up. Why has Peter Pan, since Mary Martin, who first played him, why is Peter Pan played by a woman? Why shouldn't Peter, he's a boy who won't grow up. Why isn't Peter Pan a boy? And it never even occurred to me. Wait a minute. Why isn't he a boy? He's a boy. Why are we doing this cross-dressing thing? What is that about? Because with the woman, then you get like lots of lesbian overtones between Wendy and him. I mean, it takes on a whole campy other kind of a sub thing. if you had why wouldn't a boy actor play a boy? Can't think of a thing.
I have a couple things.
Like what? What would it be?
Well, when did Mary Martin air as Peter Pan? What year?
Mary Martin, it was in the 50s.
Okay.
All right, and she was...
Child actors, not necessarily as big of a deal.
Child actors, not necessarily big a deal, so you're saying that they want... they want... You think, oh, you needed a star, so you needed... And men can't look like boys as well as women could look like a boy.
Not as well as like a slim...
Yeah, athletic
looking woman.
But...
The singing?
The singing? The singing?
Higher voice?
I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I can't explain it.
Okay.
This is so weird.
All right. It's just, I mean, it was really bad. From what I saw, it was really bad. I mean, I tip my hat to anybody who's willing to go out there on live, TV in such a complicated production and not make a total ass of yourself. But I just think it was awful what I saw. It was awful.
Now I have to see it.
Yeah, you have to get... I mean, I don't know. And it's so funny how Brian Williams' daughter, who starred in it, looks so much like him that it's sort of funny. I always have had difficulty when she's on Girls, watching her, because all I see is Brian Williams in drag. That's all I see when I look at her. But she's, I think she's a pretty good actress, but she didn't show it last night. God almighty. Okay, so I just have one more little item in case you hadn't heard this. The officer in Cleveland who drove up in his police car, saw the kid, the 12-year-old with the fake gun, told him to drop it, and shot him dead, all in 2 seconds. 2 seconds is the time that it took for him to make that judgment. It turns out that police officer who killed the kid was fired from another Ohio police department, Independence, Ohio. So that'd be a little department, Independence, Ohio, for, get this, it said he suffered a dangerous loss of composure. Now, if I'm hiring somebody to be a cop and I see he's been fired because of a dangerous loss of composure in the past, I'm hiring him? Cleveland did. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn. How are you today?
I'm okay.
I just want to let you know that they're still having the trouble with the live stream, only because the other day I had the choice. I know people have been calling all week. I had the choice of either seeing your beautiful smiling face with no sound or going to the live stream audio with no picture.
Yeah.
So, that was my choice. Anyway, the only thing I just wanted to say, because you were talking about the Eric Gardner event up in New York, the death, which I agree with you on. It's hard to believe that I would agree with you on this. But the funny thing was, because you were looking for how this whole event happened,
mm-hmm.
The thing is, it was because I found out just because of just listening or whatever, it was because he was peddling cigarettes outside of a store, selling them, as
singles. Yeah.
Yeah, and why the cops were harassing him, or even came up, is because the mayor wanted a crackdown on illegal, black market cigarettes, selling cigarettes, because so many people were doing that, and of course, when they do that, the city doesn't get the taxes. So the mayor wanted a crackdown on peddling cigarettes. And that's why the cops came up and started harassing him.
Oh, God.
So that's...
Well, the cost of cigarettes is so outrageously high now.
Right.
That the people, and it's mostly poor people who still who still smoke them, they can't afford a pack.
That's right.
So it makes sense that there'd be this now market
that's what he
for
was
singles.
Doing. He was
yeah,
just
right. And you should be killed
cigarettes.
for that. Yeah.
And the cops came up because the mayor got angry that they weren't getting the tax revenues from the cigarettes. So
yeah.
So, you know.
Okay.
If you wanted to know why they were there, that's why.
Okay.
It didn't come up that, okay, here's a big black guy, let's go up and harass him. They were cracking down.
No. I know, but that doesn't in any way.
Oh, no, it doesn't explain,
what happened. I mean, no.
Cigarettes would be knocked down and dragged and suffocated.
Right.
It's just the fact that how did it begin? Well, the mayor told the cops, go out there and stop this illegal cigarette selling.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I hear you. All righty.
All right, thanks,
Sorry.
Lynn.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
we'll be able to see you next week.
I hope so, too.
On the TV.
Thank you. Somebody sent me a review on Slate of Peter Pan. It's pretty vicious. Christopher Walken as Captain Hook. His performance alternated between inspired brilliance and an apparent lack of awareness that he was even on national television, depending on the scene. At one glance, he's doing the tarantella and is as fierce as his feathered cap. In the next, he's opening his mouth to sing and there's blatantly no noise coming out or just flat out forgetting his lines. Allison Williams as Peter Pan was the worst thing the iconic cross-dressing orphan with the Oedipus complex could be, which is just fine. Allison Williams sang, well. Her accent was fine. Her stage presence was there. It was strange then. She looked like a Peter Pan. She crowed like a Peter Pan, but she just wasn't Peter Pan. That Williams wasn't half bad, actually illuminated the biggest problem with the show, the other half, the show itself. Well, I don't know. It's just god-awful. I'm sorry. Yeah, she did not own that part. It was bad. I'm sorry. It was bad. The most egregious thing about Peter Pan Live was that it was an inexcusable bore for 3 freaking hours. Oh. All right. Well, please stop that. I mean, please stop thinking we want to watch these musicals on stage, on TV. We don't. And just one more little bit of thing about the cop who shot the boy in Cleveland. Here's what his former police department said about him. That he could not follow simple directions, could not communicate clear thoughts nor recollections, and his handgun performance was dismal. So he gets thrown out of this little police department that recognized that he wasn't fit to be a police officer, and he walks right over into Cleveland, and Cleveland PD hires him. They hire him. They never even asked to see what his former employer thought of him, obviously. Kid's dead. Oh, well. That's it. God knows what's going to become of us over the weekend. Hey, I'm on the TV show tonight, 4802. Call it whatever you want. I mean, it took me 2 years of doing the show before I remembered which numbers. 4802, ladies and gentlemen. And that's on WQED at 7:30 if you haven't had enough. Yap, yap, back and forth. Yap, 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 yap. Okay? If you want more. I think you're nuts, but go for it. See you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.